All right, we're ready to start Chapter 5 the distributive property. This should be a pretty quick lesson. So what we're going to learn today is to model the distributive property using algebra tiles and to use the distributive property to evaluate numerical expressions. So let's look at our vocabulary. The distributive property is when you multiply a sum or a difference by a number, multiply each term inside the parentheses by the number outside the parentheses. And you can see here, the outside is A, I multiply it by B, and then I multiply it by C. So A times B is AB, and plus A times C, which is AC. Same thing with subtraction here. And then if I use numbers, you can see 4 times 6 over here plus 4 times 2 over here. So equivalent expressions are expressions that have the same value. So 2 times the quantity x plus 2 is the same as 2x plus 2 times 2. So let's look at our first example. We're going to use the distributive property to solve this expression. So we start out with 8 times the quantity negative 9 plus 4. Well, in the past we've been taught to do what's inside the parentheses first, but when we're using algebra we sometimes have variables, so we have to be careful. So the first thing that we do is we take the 8 times the negative 9 plus 8 times 4. Now we're going to simplify that. 8 times negative 9 is negative 72 plus 8 times 4 is 32. Now I add those two together. Well, remember, when my signs are opposite, I subtract. 72 minus 32 is 40. And I use the sign in front of the bigger number. So my answer is negative 40. So let's look at the next example. 4 times the quantity x plus 7. This is when the distributive property comes into play because we have a variable. So the first thing that we do is we expand. So if I take that quantity, 4x plus 7, I multiply the 4 times the x plus 4 times 7. So now I have to simplify. 4 times x is 4x, and then 4 times 7 is 28. And there's my final answer. Now in the next example, it's a little tricky because we have a number where we're subtracting p minus 5. So the first thing that we do is we rewrite p minus 5 as p plus a negative 5. Remember, adding the opposite? So now if we go back to our substitution, let's go back to that original. We do 6p plus a negative 5. So now we're going to use that distributive property. We have 6 times p plus 6 times a negative 5. 6 times p is 6p plus 6 times a negative 5 is negative 30. And then we can rewrite that to a negative or a subtraction problem by going 6p minus 30. And there's your final answer. So let's try another one like that. We have negative 2 times the quantity x minus 8. So remember, we're going to rewrite x minus 8 as x plus a negative 8. Remember, we can add the opposite. So now let's take our negative 2 times the quantity, x plus a negative 8, and expand. So we have negative 2 times x plus negative 2